welcome everyone. Welcome everyone who is live with us, and welcome everyone who's watching the recordings of this session called Movie Making Basics with Premiere Pro. My name is Tim Kitchen and I'm the Senior Education Advocate for Adobe in the Asia Pacific region. And I've got a very, very helpful person named Brett Kent who's in New South Wales. And Brett is one of our star AELs, Adobe Education Leaders. And Brett's got a really good internet connection at home, and I've got a really bad one here in Melbourne at the moment. So Brett's doing the uploading for me. So thanks so much, Brett. I'll get you to go to the next slide now, mate.
Thank you, no problem.
So the first thing I just want to recommend to those of you who are watching is to consider, if you haven't already, the Adobe Campus Leader program. This is a fantastic program that we've started just this year, and it's kind of like a lead-in into the Adobe Education Leaders program. You can't apply to become an AEL, an Adobe Education Leader. You are basically invited. And what we're going to be doing from now on is inviting those people who have been part of this program. This is a program you can apply to. And we're looking for teachers who have got a real passion for the use of Adobe tools in their classroom, even if it's just one or two tools. And if they're kind of, a bit of an advocate for creativity and advocate for Adobe software at their school or at their university, that's the type of person we're looking for in the Adobe Campus Leader program. So there's the URL. Please go ahead and have a look and apply. You do need your principal or head of department's permission to do so and verification to be part of it. But other than that, it's a great program to be part of. We've got about 40 already here in Australia who are part of that program. Really wanted to build that up and see that grow. Thanks, Brett. We'll go to the next slide. Just a little bit more advertising before we get stuck into the actual topic for today. And this is the Adobe Education Exchange, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, but I just want you to be aware that we're getting close to 160,000 educators on this community at the moment. So it's just brilliant. And it's well worth sharing this out with the teachers that you work with. And ideally, we'd like to get to 200,000 by the end of this year. I'm not sure if we're going to reach that target, but the more that you can spread the word and the more that you can actually contribute to the Adobe Education Exchange, the better it's going to be. You can see we've got well over 6,500 resources already, and you're going to be seeing some of those resources during this seminar, during this session. Thanks, Brett. Next slide, please. The professional development section, of course, through the Adobe Education Exchange isn't just about these live events. There's so many things that are on there. I just wanted to point out a few highlights. So if you go to the next slide, I'll show you some of the highlights. One of them is this Adobe Generation Professional Web Design course, which is just starting now, I think, October 10. So it's just started. Enrollments will be finishing on the 23rd of October. So it's still not too late, even though it has started to enroll in this course. And if you wanted to enhance your web design skills, that is a fantastic course to get involved with. Go to the next slide. Thanks, Brett. And the other course I wanted to advertise is the one that's going to be later in the year. You can see it's going to start on the 16th of November, and this is the Adobe Generation Professional Video course. And I'm going to be taking a fairly active role in this course for people in the Southern Hemisphere, and looking forward to running it. And it's going to be a fairly intensive time. As you can see, it runs through till the 18th of January, so it's probably a good time to do a course once the school year is pretty much over, and to get some good professional learning on video production. Thanks, Brett. Next slide. So into our live events, this is a series of 3. As you can see, the first one's already happened, but the second one on the 20th of October with the very famous Pip Cleave, who often hosts these events. And I haven't been taking too much note of people connecting, so I'm not sure if Pip's with us at the moment, but if she is, she does a fantastic job. If she isn't with us, she still does a fantastic job, and she's a great person to have on board. Have a look at the 20th of October at 9 p.m. and the 27th of October at 11 a.m. for the continuation of those courses, which for those of you who are New South Wales educators, these are actually officially accredited as part of your professional learning accreditation, so you probably want to take advantage of that. Thanks, Brett. Next slide. This one I'm really excited about. This is my boss, Casey Trowbridge. She's based in San Francisco. She heads up the worldwide education team for Adobe. And she's going to be spending an hour with us to discuss some of the recent research that's just come out. This research came out literally 2 weeks ago. And it's some research, as you can see there, with 1,000 business leaders from the United States who are focused on employing people and their attitudes to how us as educators are actually preparing these people for the workforce. And there's been some fascinating data. In fact, I will be sharing just a little bit of that data with you shortly because it's really quite interesting. And it's good for us as educators to take this on board. So that's an hour thought leadership webinar. We'll be running thought leadership sessions probably once a month. You may have caught the Mitch Resnick one around about a month ago. That was brilliant. And if you haven't, have a look at the recording of that because it's inspiring to see what's happening at MIT and to see the work of Seymour Papert continuing. Thanks, Brett. And this is probably the last one I'll just advertise now. This is Advanced Animated Infographics with Flash Professional by Joseph. I always pronounce his surname incorrectly.
Lebrecht.
Yeah, Lebrecht. Thanks, Brett. Brett and I would have caught up with Joseph at the last AL Institute in San Jose. He's an amazing educator, and he'll really push you if you wanted to really get into the nitty-gritty of Flash. That'll be a fantastic session to be part of. Thanks, Brett. Oh, of course, the second part of this particular series will be on the 30th of October at the same time. So we'll be covering a little bit more than what we covered today. And the things that we don't cover today will continue on during that session.
And that guy's okay too.
Yeah, he's got that, is he? So this is the research that I was just mentioning before. This is just one of the stats that came through. And basically what these business leaders who are hiring people, and this is over 1,000, I think 1,069 or up, they're giving us a bit of a mandate. They're saying what we want from education is we want students to come into the workforce who are tech savvy. 88% sort of said that was a real priority. And just go to the bottom stat, there's 76% saying creativity is important. But this is the one that threw me. 82% of these business leaders in industry who are employing people, are saying that communication through digital and visual media is becoming a priority, is becoming an essential skill for the 21st century workforce. And that really hit home as to what we're doing at Adobe, and this particular webinar is focusing on video and how important something like video literacy is for the future workforce. So if we can prepare students to develop these skills, it's going to be so much more beneficial for them down the track when they're trying to get jobs. So I just thought I'd throw that a lot more detail will come from Casey's 1 hour session with us later on in the year. Thanks, Brett. And this slide here is just giving you an idea that we're up to now over 80 Adobe products that are out there. And I wanted to throw this in because if you have a look at the right-hand side and look at those list of apps, those apps only just came on board last week, or most of them did anyway. Adobe Voice has been around since January. So if you look at all the others, they're all apps for the iPad that were launched to coincide with Adobe Max last week in Los Angeles. And I know some of you have already downloaded them and you've already had a bit of a play, and I'm already getting some feedback on how they're being used in the classroom, which is great. I had a bit of fun with Adobe Premiere Clip the other day and just had a bit of a play with it. It's so simple to use and a fantastic way of working with video and enhancing your video literacy skills using mobile devices. So have a go at downloading those. They're free, and get back to me. Let me know what you think of them and how you're potentially going to be using them or how you are using them in the classroom, and I'd love to get that information. Thanks, Brett. So the aim of these two sessions, this one and the next one later in the year, we've got touch on video as a new literacy. We're going to briefly recommend some basic video production techniques. We're going to share some online resources with you. We're going to talk about file management, and then we're going to get stuck into Premiere Pro. By the time we've actually started a Premiere Pro project and done some basic editing, we'll probably run out of our 30 minutes for tonight. But that's okay, because we've got another 30 minutes coming up later on, and on the 30th of October from memory. and that's when we can continue on. But hopefully we'll get through all of part one as we move through. Any other slides there, mate? We've got a couple more, so go to the next one for us. So video as a literacy, and I've been sort of preaching this for a number of years now, saying once video was in a sense the domain of those with access to really expensive production equipment and skills. But these days, thanks to online networking such as YouTube and Vimeo, as well as video editing software such as what we're about to work with, video production has become almost as common and essential as word processing in terms of the skill to learn. And I'm calling it video as a literacy now. Go to the next slide, thanks, mate. And digital video is becoming the main media of the 21st century, and schools should be investing in preparing students for a world where YouTube is becoming a more popular choice of viewing than free-to-air television. Thanks, mate. Next slide. So a couple little tips for you. When you're actually doing your video production, always consider the importance of audio. Audio is 60% of your video, and it's often the last thing we think of when we're about to go and film something. In many cases, our cameras that we work with in schools only have an onboard mic. They actually you can't plug in an external mic. So what I'm thinking is that next time your school is thinking about purchasing a camera, try and purchase a camera that can get an external mic plugged in, because it makes a world of difference to the quality of your production. If you can get the microphone close to the source of the audio, it makes a huge difference to the quality. And so what some schools are doing is they're makeshifting. They're actually grabbing their iPhones or their iPod touches or their iPads or even their Android devices, and they're using those as separate audio capture devices, capturing the audio because they can get those devices close to the person who's talking, and then later on with Premiere Pro, syncing in and matching it so they've got good audio and then they've got good video and they're piecing it together, which I'll explain how you do probably in part two when we get to that stage of it. But it's just a little thing that we often forget is how important the audio is in video production. Thanks, mate. Next slide.
And actually, to add to that, I've even found in my classroom that a lot of the students even like to just use a microphone on the desktop computer and dub it after they're done.
Yeah, that's great. All those sort of tips help. The other thing that is often not considered is the importance of lighting. And just a couple of little golden rules. One is to make sure the most light source that you've got, whether it's the sun coming through a window, whether it's fluorescent lights up on the classroom or wherever it is, just make sure that the main light source is actually behind the camera. And ideally, behind the camera and slightly to one side, because then you start getting a bit more depth in the picture. Because when you're actually videoing with a video camera, you're getting a very flat image. So if you can get the illusion of depth, that adds to the quality of your image. Have a look at that little girl down there on the bottom of the slide. You can see the lights coming in from her right, and so therefore her right is just a little bit shinier than her left, and you can see a sense of depth. Some schools like to grab a bit of polystyrene, or as you can see there, the guy on the left, he's got a reflector board, and capturing the sunlight and then deflecting the sunlight into one side of the talent, and it adds to that sense of depth. You may have seen. What you never want to do, though, is actually shoot towards a window or have the talent backed onto a window where light's coming through, because then you get a very much an underexposed look, and the talent, the person you're filming, ends up getting really dark. And even with high-end professional cameras, it's really hard to try and adjust that. And when you're in Premiere Pro, there's only so much you can do in terms of light correction. So if you can get the best possible light when you're actually shooting initially, it just makes a world of difference. Thanks, Brett. Next slide. I've set up a set of video camera technique tutorials or little video blogs on the Adobe Education Exchange. I actually spent a day with John Barry. He's the video guru for Adobe for Australia and New Zealand. And there's a little screen grab there of a couple of the techniques. Do yourself a favour, have a look at that resource, have a look at those clips, and they give you some really good tips and tricks from a professional who's worked in the TV industry for a number of years and continues to do that for us at Adobe. Anything to add there, Brett, before we go to the last slide?
No, I think it's just one of those things that, yeah, the framing of an image, and it's something that I teach my students all the time, is the basic elements of composition and design. So many photographs and video footage that you see, things, not a lot of thought is put into lighting and composition, and something where the content is of good quality can be spoiled by poor composition, and it's so simple when you know a few basic rules.
Yeah, thanks, mate. So what we're about to do is we're going to actually go into some of the resources on the Adobe Education Exchange now, and these are the two main URLs. I actually set these up last year, I think, or earlier this year. I can't remember exactly when they were set up. But and I had a look at them, and they're still quite relevant. What I was hoping to do in this session is actually do a live working with Premiere Pro with you. But because I've got very limited bandwidth where I'm at the moment, I'm going to rely on these resources and then talk them through with you. So Brett, if we can go to the first of the videos, and we'll play that, and I might get you to pause at different times so that we can actually get going. So this one's called Opening Premiere Pro as a Project. We'll get it on the full screen if we can.
Yeah, just have to blow him up.
Blowing up and get some audio up and running. And hopefully that'll come up soon. So this is like a first starting point.
Might have to jump over.
Jump into YouTube. It's not getting the audio there, mate. Might have to talk it through if we're not going to get sound.
I'll turn the sound down a little, guys.
We can't hear it at all, Brett. Or at least I can't hear it. Can you turn it up? Maybe get your microphone near your speakers.
Yeah, that's what I'll probably have to do, guys.
Yeah. A little technical hiccups. We did a practice yesterday and my bandwidth was so bad that ended up having to work having national broadband yet. There it is. So we're getting a little bit of audio there. Maybe you can turn it up a bit more. And depending on how fast your computer is, it does take a little while sometimes to slower computers to start the program. Generally, the first thing you do is set a new project. But if you're working on a project already that exists, it appears here as one of the recent items. So we'll jump now to a new project. Now, this window here, it's a lot easier than it actually looks. What you can do is just quickly name your project. I'm just going to call mine Test. And it is important to hit the Browse button and go searching for, or actually creating, a new directory for this project, a new folder. A folder like a project folder where you're going to be containing all of your assets for the video. Now what I tend to do is encourage people to go in the Mac side, to go straight to the movie section. There's a similar section on the Windows as well. And if you go to maybe a folder that relates to the year that you're working on or the month you're working on, or you can just do the project if you haven't got too many projects there. I'm going to jump into this year. I'm going to go into a new folder. I'm going to call this one Test and then click Create. And so when I click Choose, I've now got the path or the directory that this project will be saved into. And you don't have to worry about creating scratch disks and render file disks and all that sort of stuff, because that all happens automatically. If you notice on the scratch disk tab, everything there is pointing to same as project. In other words, the folder that you've just created, which makes it really easy. You don't have to worry about any of these other things here really at all. In fact, the only one that you might want to worry about is this capture section. This is only if you're still in the habit of using an old-fashioned way of capturing video by plugging in your camera and working with tape footage, like when you had FireWire connected to your computer and you were capturing via FireWire, going basically from analog to digital. Just pause there, mate, if you can. To whatever your camera. So just letting you know, guys, you don't have to worry about that these days. No one uses tape anymore. Most people have moved over to digital. Everything is digital. So really what I'm trying to say with this video is that it looks complicated when you first open up Premiere, but it really is as simple as just giving your project a name and then saving it into a dedicated project folder. And that folder is really important in terms of your file management, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And that's all you need to do when you start your first Premiere project. Name it, save it into a dedicated folder, and then you're ready to move on. Thanks, Bert. type is at that time. But most people don't use that anymore. Generally now it's all done on cards and chips. Generally now it's all digital. So you can just click OK, and then your Premiere Pro environment is open and is ready to start working with. So that's the first clip. We'll jump to the second clip because this second clip talks about file management and the importance of file management with video editing. As you know, with video, the file sizes are huge. And the more that you shoot, the bigger the file size, and it becomes really hard to manage after a while. So this video will help give you some tips on how to manage your files. Hi. File management is a really important part of video editing. There are three really different types of files that you work with video. Moving images, sort of like moving footage, still images, like still photos that you take with a digital camera, and audio files. There are other types of files that you can add in, but they're the three most important assets that you put into any sort of video project. So we need to organize them. What I've done now is I've already opened up a Premiere Pro project and I've already saved it. I'll show you where I've saved it. I tend to always save my video work into the movie section, and I'll go to a 2013 folder, because it's 2013, and I've now created a project folder with all the different project folders that I've created recently. This one's called Basic Editing Sample. Inside that folder is where I've saved my Premiere Pro project, and there it is, called Basic Editing Sample. Premiere automatically generates these two folders, which we won't worry about just now. But what I recommend is that you create an audio folder for any sound effects or any music that you put in, a BGs and titles folder, which stands for backgrounds and titles, for any backgrounds, any titles you put in, a footage folder for all the moving images, a still folder for any still images. I'm going to go to the footage folder now. I'm going to actually populate it with some footage. So it's going to go and open up a new window, file, new, find the window, and I'm going to go hunting for a previous project where I know there's some footage, my camera techniques project, main camera footage. Now I know this one here is some footage, the N2T file, which means it's been recorded with an AVCHD camera. It's a very common format these days, and Premiere works really well. A really good high definition format of the movie. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it into my footage folder. And that's coming in now. I'm going to go to still image while I'm here as well. I tend to put all my stills in my picture folder. I'm going to go hunting for an Adobe image. Let's find the Adobe logo, that'll do. I'll just copy that and paste that into my stills folder. And I'm going to grab an audio file as well. I tend to put my audio files into my music section, and I'll go to my backing tracks and find one in my exports that I'll do. I'll copy that to put that into there. So everything's now contained in this project folder. You're probably wondering why I'm not just taking it from its original location. Well, I find it better to make a copy of it and put it into a project folder so that later on, if you want to archive your project, you can just grab that whole project folder, which is there, and then you can paste it into an external hard drive. Then you can remove it from your internal hard drive and save some space. It's a really good way of managing your files, is to set up a project folder and put all your assets inside that, and you can manage it well later on. Now that I've done that, I've started to manage my files. I'm going to jump into Premiere, and I'm going to import just those folders. I'm going to go down to the bottom left-hand corner into this window here, which is, you can see my project is called Basic Editing Sample. If I do a right click inside that folder and go to Import, I can then go and find my project folder, which again is in Movie 2013, Basic Editing Sample, and there's my footage folder. I'm going to hold my Command key down so that I can just select the folders that I want to import. Now that I've selected those four, if I click Import, they will come across, and now we don't call them folders at this point. Should have an issue there or something, but I'll just ignore that. We call them bins now. It's an old-fashioned term for a folder inside a video editing software. It's called a bin. Now, if I open up these bins, you can see I've got my audio file, my video file from the footage folder, and my still file. If I double-click my video file, you can see there's John there. If I scrub through, you can see it's ready to start working. And I've got my audio file. If I double-click that, it comes up as a waveform. If I play that, introduced there in my skills folder. So my assets are in there, they're organised, they're ready to start working to create my project. Just to add to that, one thing that I'm teaching these days is rather than doing right-click and import, you can just drop and drag. So you can just grab that folder that you know you've got the video files in, and just grab that whole folder and drop and drag it into that bottom left-hand corner of Premiere Pro, and it'll import for you automatically. That's a little bit more intuitive than doing a right-click and import. So we've only got 3 minutes to go, Brett, so we probably won't run into the
And also to add a little more to that, one of the things that I often get with my students is if they don't store their folders in a central location to begin with, they come back to it the next time and they say, oh, it's all gone haywire, it hasn't saved correctly, it hasn't worked in some way. And the reason for that is that those files that they're working with, the audio, the video and the stills, they need to be in some form of managed central location so that Premiere Pro knows where to go back and find it when it reopens and boots up the following time. So it's a really important step to teach the students the first time around when they first start working with video editing.
Yeah, and if they start moving around those files after they've started the project, they run into all sorts of problems. Easy to fix, but if you can avoid the problems in the first place, it's a lot better.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Brett, just checking the chat now, just see if there's any glaring questions that we need to focus on, and we won't play the next video because we'll run out of time. We'll play that in the next session to see if there's anything we need to answer at the moment.
Okay, well I'll jump back into the room because I can only see my sharing screen at the moment, and I'll come back into the room with us.
Stop sharing, and we'll just have a quick look at the chat. I'll just bring it back. In fact, I'll go to the closing page, which will have the chat on there, and we can sort of go through that. While we're going through the chat responses, we don't think there are too many questions there, unless I'm looking at the wrong chat pod.
No.
But we'll get you guys to start filling out the polls that are there. This session was valuable. I would recommend a session to others and so on. Keeping in mind that we're only halfway through, and we've got a fair bit to get to. So for part 2, we'll just go diving straight into the project, and we'll be working on a number of techniques. But I thought it's pretty important to go through the file management side of things first. So looking at the chat, what have we got? We've got people introducing themselves, saying the session was so quick. Yes, they do go quick. And Ted's is typing away. Got a few people typing. We've got one person who wasn't happy with the session. That happens. It doesn't look like there's any glaring questions at the moment, so we'll sign off. We'll stop recording now. We'll stay on. Brett and I will stay on for a few more minutes if you want to have a chat privately, if you want to contribute to the discussion. But for those who are watching the recording, be ready for the next session.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty next time. I think with a half-hour session, it's really, really difficult to get into the nitty-gritty without going into the basics to begin with. And things like storage locations and actually having things organized before you start becomes one of those stumbling blocks if you don't actually, if you don't know that, and then we get right into the real, real tricky things, it becomes very difficult to actually manage. So I suppose it's one of those things that, we just, sorry, got to go through the basics to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are really keen to go to the next stage, feel free to jump into the next resources that are there on the Education Exchange. There's several in there, and you'll see what we'll be covering for next week, and that'll give you access to the nitty-gritty and such. So thanks, everyone. We're going to stop the recording now, and